Hello everybody, my name is Joshua and I'd like to welcome you back to another episode of Coffee, Cats, and King, where we will discuss books both new and old, and we'll share with you pictures of my cats who will make you wish they were your cats, and I'm drinking enough coffee for me and everybody watching. You've seen this mug before. It's my ghost with his little mousey. I'm wearing a Gryffindor shirt. It's just a big oversized t-shirt that I picked up at Goodwill for a couple bucks. One, because it was super comfortable, and two, because I'm a big Harry Potter fan. I know it's Gryffindor, and realistically, I'm not a Gryffindor. I think it's probably more than likely, well, if you catch me at work, I'm probably closer to a Slytherin. But for the most part, I think I'm most likely Ravenclaw. So, my cat today, I have this cutie pie, who's going to get really mad at me for holding him like this. Okay. Well, that didn't work out. So, as the title says, I'm here today with book mail, a book review, and sort of book news, if you will. The news, which I will go on and get out of the way, is that I'm going to do a 50 book challenge where I don't buy any more books until I've finished 50 of the books on my shelves. Now, considering the recent advent of Michael K. Vaughan's 500 book challenge, this is probably not very exciting news. And, you know, I consider joining him for that, honestly, but I can't do it. I get such enjoyment out of buying new books, as I think most of us do. And even for me, and I tend to read quite a bit more than your average person, a 500 book challenge is still a good 2.5 years. I mean, that is a sort of commitment that is just insane to me. Because in the meantime, all those books you already wanted to read are now compounded by all these books coming out in the next 2.5 years that you really want to read, and I just don't have the mental capacity for that sort of thing, you know? 50 books I can manage. That's a few months. Now, the stipulation here for me that is going to make it last a little bit longer is that they do have to be 50 physical books. So I'm eliminating all of my ebooks and audiobooks, because really the point of this is to sort of clear up my bookshelf some, actually get through some of my insane backlog. And I'm hoping that out of these 50 books, maybe say 25 of them I'll be able to take off my shelves and give away or sell altogether, thereby making room for new books. Makes sense in my head. I'm going to start this challenge as of today. So the first book that will count is the one that I started last night, Jules Chasing Down the Dawn. Now, I should say that if you are new to the channel, if you just happen to find me, and this is the first book you're seeing on my channel, this is not what you would typically see here. This is just because I have a love of Jewel, and I was very excited, found one of her books, and have decided to jump in. The books that you will typically see on here are the ones that I'm going to show you here in this book mail that I got. This is the sort of stuff you're going to see most often, although I do try to branch out and read a little bit of everything. For those of you who already knew that, I'm sorry that you just had to hear it all again. So 50 books, I'm going to knock 50 books out off my shelf before I buy any others. So these couple of books that I have here are sort of a last hurrah. And it's just 3 that I picked up from Goodwill and 3 that were gifted to me. So I'm going to show those off real quick and then do a brief review on a book that has been around for hundreds of years. Everybody knows it, but most people don't really know it. So the books that I picked up, like I said, just 3 quick books. I'm not going to talk about them too extensively. First is Pat Barker with Regeneration. There's another one that wouldn't typically be on my channel, a book that I would not generally pick up, but it intrigued me. This is actually part of a trilogy, a rather well-known trilogy, about a war hero who is in the British Army in World War One, and he decides that he no longer wants to fight because, as he says, the war is a senseless slaughter. This, of course, this sends off all kinds of bells to the higher-ups, and they say, well, man, a war hero that thinks that war is just senseless, something is wrong with this guy. So they send him to what is essentially an asylum where this doctor is tasked with bringing him back to his sanity, if you will. And that's all I really know about it, other than the fact that it's part of a trilogy and that it is rather well known. I'm not typically an historical fiction kind of guy. I'm going to give it a go. I'm sure some of you out there have read this. Let me know what you think. But that was one of them. Second one is a perfect example of why I need to do this 50-book challenge. This is Joe Abercrombie with Half the World. Now, this is part of what is known to be just an immensely incredible fantasy series, and it's book 2. And I don't have book 1, but I saw this. It was only $2 at Goodwill. I went on and picked it up because I know it's going to be a series that I love. So even though I don't have book 1, and even though I don't know when I'm going to get book 1, I decided to buy this book. So now this book is taking up valuable space on my shelves, and I don't even know when I'm going to get to it. So, perfect example of why I need to go on this book buying ban. Third book that I picked up. I have a long history with this book. This is Gregory Maguire with Wicked, The Life and Times of the Wicked Witch of the West. Now, lovely step back right there. I read the majority of this book once. And I just started my first job at the time, my first serious job anyway. And my manager was just relentlessly giving me a hard time about reading this book, and about how it was such a girly book, and I had no business reading this kind of thing, and I should be ashamed of myself. Now, keep in mind that my manager was a woman, but she was just relentless. You know, every day I'd bring this book in to read on my lunch break, and she would just hammer into me about it until eventually I got sick of it, and I got rid of the book. And that's probably the only time in my life where I've put a book aside because of something that someone else had to say to me about it, and I always regretted it. So I'm glad to have a new copy. I'm glad to be picking this up now. If for some strange reason, Catherine, you ever came across this, it's your fault I didn't read this book. So shame on you, Catherine. Shame on you. Excuse me for a moment, had it once out. Go ahead, buddy. In or out? Okay. And it is. Now, the next 3 books were given to me. 2 by my lovely wife, Paige, and 1 by the author. So, 2 or 3 years ago, I emailed an author on Goodreads, Mr. Mike Bogue, and asked him if I could purchase a signed copy of one of his books that I was really interested in. I was in a phase where the only books that I wanted to buy were signed copies or special editions. It didn't last very long because I realized I was way too poor for that. But I had sent them this message, and for those of you who have not used the messaging system on Goodreads, it is not the greatest. It's very easy to end up with messages in your inbox and not realize they are there. And I think this is what happened with Mr. Mike Bogue. So then, out of the blue, maybe 2 weeks ago, I get a message back from him. And he says, hey, I'm really sorry that that I never responded to this, but I feel bad about it, and I'd like to send you a signed copy for free. We kind of bantered back and forth on it because I don't like doing that. So I'm doing the best I can in that, and then I'm going to show his book off here. Hopefully, get you guys some, excited about it. And when I read it, I'm going to do a review on here. That way, I will feel like I'm at least doing something in return for Mr. Mike Bogue. So the book he sent me, the cover is freaking fantastic. And I really don't think I need to tell you anything about the book itself because the cover speaks for itself. So this is Atomic Drive-In. And I'm going to let this thing settle so that you can really see everything going on in here. You already know where this book is going. The cover is absolutely fantastic. Harkens back to all of the B movies, monster movies of the day. And I just know that this is going to be a blast. It's actually short stories, all within this realm, because this is really its own realm, let's be honest. And this is one of those books where you saw that cover just now and you absolutely want a copy immediately, or it does not interest you whatsoever. But for those that now really want to know about this, I will be reading it very soon. I will be giving a review on here, and I would like to thank Mr. Mike Bogue again for sending me this fantastic looking book, signed with a very sweet little message in there. Thank you so much, Mike. I really appreciate it, and I very much look forward to getting to this book. And then the two books that Paige bought me were two books off my list. One has been on my list for years. The other just went on there about a month ago when I saw it at the bookstore and knew I had to have it. This one is, again, part of a series, part of a fantasy series. This is Grimdark at its finest. Grimdark, for those of you who don't know, is fantasy that is just what it sounds like. It is very dark, very violent, very disturbing. It is the closest thing in fantasy to horror, really, more than anything. And this book has been said many times to stand above the rest, to be one of the best in that field. This is Mark Lawrence with Prince of Thorns. A gorgeous cover, absolutely beautiful cover. Very excited for this book. I know I say that with every book, but I am. I can't help it. Again, reason for the 50 book challenge. The second book that Paige got me is one I just saw, immediately fell in love with the cover, and couldn't wait to show it off to you guys on here. This is S.A. Cedar with Fury from the Tomb. Get your mummy up top. Kind of definitely sort of Indiana Jones feel from this cover. So this book takes place in Egypt in 1888 when a young man stumbles upon a tomb with 5 coffins and one very oversized sarcophagus. As soon as they find this room with these coffins, horrible things start happening. People start dying. Our main character, Ram, ends up getting away, but then his train is hijacked by bandits. He must then go after them with the daughter of one of the men he works for, as well as a gunslinger. And they are traveling, trying to collect these mummies that may not actually be as dead as you think. So, so it has a very actiony, Indiana Jonesy feel, but with a little twist of horror with the living mummies. Really excited for it. Fell in love with the cover. I can't say much else. It's 450 pages. I don't know if it's part of a series or if this is going to be a standalone, but I had to have it. I had to have it. I'm sure you guys can understand. And then I'm going to leave off with a very quick little review. Recently, for the first time in a very, very long time, I reread Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Now, I learned a bit from the wonderful Hannah over at House of Hannah. I will link her channel below. She is fantastic. If you have not watched her before, her and her husband live there in France, and she reviews really a pretty eclectic mix of things, from classics to modern day horror, fantasies, really just a little bit of everything. And she's a great person. I've talked to her many times. Really suggest her channel for those of you that have not been introduced to it before. And recently she reread Frankenstein as well, and gave me sort of the scoop on it, if you will, and that there are two main versions, the 1818 version and the 1831 version. Now, the issue being that most of the time, the particular copy you have is not going to tell you which version you have. I was able to find out that I have the 1831 revised version, and she very helpfully told me what these differences entail. It was interesting because you have this classic that everybody knows and loves, and even those that have read it have potentially not read the true version of Frankenstein, or they have not read the updated version. So, I don't know, it's interesting because it's a story that everyone knows or thinks they know, but really, even if you have read it, you might not know the full story. And that brings me to my other point, in that Frankenstein is one of those books that everyone talks about, and I feel like a lot of people haven't actually read it or know the story behind it. A lot of them are familiar with the movies, of course, and their however many forms, and that's just not the true Frankenstein. The true Frankenstein is a very fast-paced book in a way, very short, actually, only 240 pages, so very short, but it keeps you going. There's not a lot of downtime in this book. And a lot of people end up siding with the monster rather than with Victor Frankenstein. They say, well, it's Victor's fault that that this happened in the first place. And I think maybe in the past I felt that way, but reading it again this time, I gotta say, maybe I'm in the minority here, or maybe it's just the hip thing to do to side with the monster nowadays, but I am 100% on Victor's side here. What happens to him is absolutely tragic. This story is really about him having everything in his life stripped away because he dared to do something that nobody has ever been able to do before, and that is to create life out of inanimate material. So, as a gift for his incredible scientific breakthrough, the monster kills so many people that he knows and loves, all these people around him, sends him to jail unjustly for the murder of one of these people, sends one of his very good friends to jail, and she ultimately dies because of it. And he just has everything stripped from him by this monster. And then at the end, the monster is all sad and upset because he doesn't get the ending he wants. Well, man, there's a better way to go about things than to throw a tantrum and, you know, crush someone's windpipe, especially a child's. So this became less of a review and more of me just ranting about the fact that so many people don't actually know the story of Frankenstein. The monster is very articulate, very intelligent, and Yes, he's lonely. I get it. He's lonely. He wants someone to talk to. Does that make it right that he kills so many people and just haunts Victor until the day of his death? Absolutely not. No, it does not. Because at the end of the day, he is essentially human, or at least has a human mind. He understands things well enough to speak in a manner that is far above, in regards to intelligence, to those of the average person. Therefore, he can certainly understand what murder implies and what murder causes in the lives of those around them. So to say that the monster is the innocent here just doesn't make sense to me. I don't know. You guys tell me what you think below, but I said it didn't end up being a review. It ended up being more of a rant and just my thoughts. For those who have read the book, what do you think? For those who haven't, I was trying not to spoil anything at the same time, you know, but read it, because the movie is not the book. And the book you read may not be the version that you read the second time. I'm positive that the first time I read the 1818 version, this time I'm reading the 1831 version, and although they are minor differences, they do make a difference. So let me know what you think below. I hope that you enjoyed this video. It was all over the place. You did get a little bit of havoc here with me and his silly self. Don't be bashful, buddy. Don't be bashful. The camera loves you. Okay. Well, we are going to call it here. Call it a wrap. We've had a great time talking with you. We'll be back again soon with probably a couple actual reviews instead of whatever the heck that was about Frankenstein. But there we go, 50 book challenge. I don't think it'll be too bad. And I think it's much more manageable for someone like me who just, I rely sometimes on being able to buy a book and that cheering me up. And is that the best way of doing things? No, but it's my way, and that's just kind of the way things go, you know? So 50 books before I buy any more. If I get gifts from people, well, that's one thing, but I will not be purchasing anymore. But these 6 books that I showed you, I'm very excited to get to. There will be 6 of the books that end up in my 50 book challenge. And again, tell me your thoughts below on Frankenstein in its various forms. Let's talk about the movies too if you want. But that's all. Stay safe. Drink great coffee. Cheers.